Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Plan Commission ARB for September 5th. If you have any electronic gadgets, please silence them at this time. We'll start with the roll call. Ryan?
Steve Lichtenfeld,
Here.
Carolyn Gatiss, Bridget McAndrew,
Here.
Bob Denlow, Helen DeFate,
Here.
Kami Waldman,
Here.
David Gibson. Here.
Okay. We have minutes from the previous meeting on August 21st. Are there any changes? No. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Before we proceed, we'd like to introduce Gavin Wickenhauser. He is part of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission, one of the high school students that lives in our district. So we welcome you. He has a partner and they will be alternating. Is that correct? So welcome. Okay, we'll go on to new business. The item number 1 is 350 North Brentwood. Ryan? Before you start, is the applicant here?
Online.
Online? Okay. Okay, we can go ahead.
The subject property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Brentwood and Clayton Lane Court. The property is developed with a single-family home and is part of the Clayton Lane Court planned unit development. The applicant is seeking approval of the demolition and reconstruction of the front porch. The existing porch is constructed of exposed aggregate with metal railings. It is proposed to be removed and replaced with a porch and steps of identical square footage. The new path is proposed to be constructed of limestone tile. Adjacent to the path are proposed stone retaining walls that will not exceed 36 inches in height. The walls will house planter beds. Retaining walls are common nearby due to North Brentwood's varying slopes. Front entry path materials vary and can comprise materials such as concrete, exposed aggregate, brick, and stone. The proposal complies with the architecture review guidelines and the coverage limitations of the Clayton Lane Court PUD. The proposal includes quality materials common to the surrounding area. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal is complementary to the existing property and surrounding area. Staff recommends approval as submitted.
Okay, thank you. The applicant is online with the hand up.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, would you give us your name and relation to the project and then add anything you'd like?
My name is Chris Rhodes. I'm with TRC Outdoor. We designed the project and we're the contractor for the project.
Kitty.
Do you have anything to add to the staff report?
No, I mean, we're basically just reorienting a little bit the sidewalk that's there and putting stone over it instead of aggregate concrete. The clients are updating their house and like this look better, and we think it fits well with the neighborhood. So there are existing stone walls off each side of the porch now. Those will be removed, replaced at, the same locations, just with stone to match what we're doing on the rest of the project. It's all Missouri limestone.
Okay. I thought it looked very good. It changes the whole appearance and the way you get up to the house instead of the existing curving walkway with exposed aggregate. I saw no problem. I think it fits into the neighborhood and the materials look good also. But let's go around the review board. Bridget?
I don't have any comments. I thought it looked nice as well.
Helen?
Yes, I would just like to confirm it's Missouri limestone for the walls.
Yes, everything is the same limestone.
Okay, sounds good. No further questions.
Amy?
I just had a quick question. You were saying, I was wondering like where you're kind of picking up that Missouri limestone. To me, when I kind of walked by it today, I didn't see it relate to anything else like in the area. And then I just heard you say like that little partial height wall in the corner because that's brick right now, right?
And that's staying. They just have some very small little stone walls they're more like gardening bed walls there that we're going to match with the same stone.
Okay, but really nowhere else do we see that material anywhere right now?
No, not on this house. Originally, the homeowner wanted to do this out of concrete for a more modern look, but we told them and like Ryan had said that won't pass. So they're open to doing this out of stone instead, masonry stone instead. So
is it like a pollet? Like, is it really smooth or is there going to be texture to it?
No, so it's equivalent to like a Wisconsin Fond du Lac or an Indiana limestone. It's just a Missouri stone. It's quarried down. It's the same stone that's on the Missouri Capitol building. So it's very commonly used around the area as a historic stone. It has a texture to the surface of it, which for safety for walking on the
Sure.
stairs and stuff. But it's a blasted finish, so it's a pretty uniform look.
Okay. Yeah, it just, to me, it looks a little bit modern in the context of like that house and like the surrounding area, but I think the layout's great. It's a little modern, I think.
Yeah, I think that house particular is a little bit more contemporary than some of the other ones, even in that same development already. So they're trying to, I think the goal is for them to keep the look of the house while also adding some more design element to it.
Okay.
Anything else? No. David?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Any comments from the audience?
You have
Steve,
Carolyn
I'm
online?
here
Oh,
too. It's-
Okay, sorry, Carolyn.
Oh, it's okay. A comment on the limestone. We use that all through Forest Park. We've used it historically. It's the Missouri limestone. And you can get it at Semco, Earthworks, or any one of those. I mean, it's up to them how they want the finish to be, but usually it has sort of undulating, for lack of a better term, pock marks. It's really pretty. So, Kami, I think you would actually really appreciate it. But other than that, I had no comments about this project. I thought it looked great.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the audience? And no other hands raised. Okay, well, we do have a staff recommendation to approve as submitted. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank
Good luck
you.
with it. Okay, items 2 and 3 have been pulled. So we'll move on to items 4 and 5. 515 South Central Avenue. And I believe hold on, we have to go through the report.
The subject property is located on the west side of South Central Avenue, roughly mid-block between the street's intersection with Davis Drive and the street's terminus at Merrimack Elementary School. The property is developed with a 2-story single-family home and is zoned R2 single-family dwelling district. The applicant is seeking to construct a residential addition and to make improvements to the front and rear yards. A full analysis of site plan review criteria are identified in the staff report, and I'll provide some of the highlights. The project meets the height, setback, and coverage requirements of the R2 district and is of compatible scale with the surrounding area. HVAC units are proposed to be located on and screened on a flat section of the addition's roof. The applicant is proposing trash storage within the garage rather than an exterior screened trash enclosure. Staff are of the opinion that the configuration of the property is such that trash will be adequately screened from the street and surrounding properties when it is moved outside for trash collection. Proposed runoff is projected to increase 0.05 cubic feet per second to a total of 0.52. Downspouts will discharge to a dry well with pop-up emitters. Existing canopy coverage is 7,604 square feet with 5,400 to be removed. The plan proposes adding 2,500 square feet of canopy coverage, which is 212 more than required, 100% of the plant species are native. The proposed trees technically exceed the limit for identical genus, but the plan has been deemed acceptable by the contracted landscape reviewers. Staff are of the opinion that the project meets the criteria for site plan approval and recommend approval with the following conditions. The landscape plan depicts the existing dry creek and does not identify proposed dry well and pop emitter. Coordinate the landscape and civil plans to ensure damage is not done to the root system of the existing trees to remain, and that the dry well will function with the dry creek. And to ensure the future maintenance and protection of the dry well, the applicant shall record a deed restriction identifying the location and details of the system with St. Louis County Recorder of Deeds and provide proof of recording with the building permit submission.
Okay, thank you. We're doing the site plan review at this point. So if the applicant would like to come up, identify yourself, your connection to the building. We will do architectural review next. So let's just.
Hello, my name is Chris Pike. I'm with Thomas Allen Group Architects. I'm representing the Davises today. 515 South Central. It's a 2-story brick home that we are putting an addition on the rear and above the garage. We had Wilson Civil Design do our civil drawings for us, and we had Baxter Gardens do the landscape designs for us on this project as well.
Okay, I'm sure we have a few questions.
Sure.
I'd like to, let's just look at the site plan, not the building itself. You're proposing 2 stairways on the south side, and I don't really understand how they fit in. There's a public walkway along there also. And the 5-foot wide vacated easement, does that include the public walkway, or is that purely on the private property?
That's purely on their property. The easement, the public sidewalk is outside of that easement. So that was an easement that was not being used. Yes, yeah, that'd be great.
That was.
Please give us your name and speak into the microphone.
Hi, Lauren Davis. That was an old easement that was plotted originally as a general usage easement. It was not specifically deeded to any one utility. So what we went ahead and did was contact all the utilities to make sure that they did not have a recorded easement specifically in the name of any of those utilities. And we got from them what they called a letter of non-objection, which basically just means that they have no utilities on there. They see no plan to add utilities on there. And because of that, they're fine with vacating their claim to that easement. So that is actually on the north side of what is a retaining wall separating the sidewalk there that cut through from the lot.
So will the concrete block retaining wall remain?
That retaining wall is currently about this height. It will remain there. There will be fencing along there. What you're seeing, that's the stairwell down and up, will be gated on the front side and will be included in the back fence as well. It's a walkway down to an entrance on the side and then stairs down and then back up into the backyard as well.
Okay, so you can really only access the stairs from the house or the backyard.
You can access
not
it
the
from the
front.
front. There would be a gate
A
on the
gate.
fence, but it will be enclosed in that gated area and then from the backyard.
Okay,
Steve, can I ask a follow-up question
Sure.
about that? So then will the retaining wall then go all, because those stairs are gonna go all the way down. So will there be a big retaining wall to hold
There
up?
are 2 different retaining walls. There is one which is currently there and has been there
Right,
for,
right.
I grew up in that neighborhood. It's been there my whole life. It's about this tall, separating.
And then a
that lot.
fence, and then a fence.
And then there'll
inside.
be, there's a 5-foot fence with a scalloped edge on top. And then on the other side of that, I think there's a couple feet before the actual retaining wall that will actually hold up the land to
Right,
that
to go
walk
to
down
the
into the
stairs.
lower level, correct?
And why are the stairs on that side? Why did you choose to do that rather than like on the driveway side?
So
Which
there
seems-
is no way to do them on the driveway side. The driveway abuts the property line on the other side. So to do stairs on that side would render our driveway ineffective.
Okay.
And the only way to do that across the back would be to take up with this addition, what little is left of the green space in favor of concrete, which I don't think is anyone's objective. So because of this, we could get access to the lower level if we were entertaining outside and then being able to walk inside, or then allow guests to be able to walk from the front without all the way around, and then walk into the backyard or into the lower level if we were having a party.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess, because I was kind of wondering why we're even undergoing the expense of, I mean, because that's a big staircase, big retaining wall where you could just access your basement from your house, I guess. So that's,
For us, it was just important to be able to have access to the exterior. We do at some point plan on potentially having relatives come stay with us, and if they want to be able to access from the side, this would just be for a temporary reason as a guest suite, basically. Then they could be able to do so, or if we were having a party or someday when our kids are teenagers and they want to be able to go in and out, not having to run through the kitchen or disturb anyone in the house.
okay.
We just figured while we were going ahead and doing all the excavating for the addition, it was a good time to do that now versus dealing with that problem later.
Yeah, it just didn't look like there was a lot of space. So you, like, between the new addition and the fence. So I was just trying to figure out how you were gonna fit all of it. but-
There is not a lot
Yeah.
of space over there, but it will be optimized for what we can fit there and look nice.
Staying on the site plan, the new concrete apron and driveway behind the garage, is that large enough to park another car since you're decreasing the 2-car garage to a 1-car garage?
It is, yes, it is decent or big enough to park another car. It'll be a little bit of a maneuver, but it is deep enough to get another car or big enough to get another car.
Okay, and the reason I ask, and Lauren, I think you understand, Central Avenue is a pickup and drop off for Merrimack School. And the road really isn't wide enough for parked cars, a line of cars, and a third lane for exiting. So,
Yes, as
you
someone who
thought
sits
that
in
out?
carpool line frequently and jogs around cars, yes, I understand there would be room with the depth of the yard for 2 cars to park on the side and an additional one to park in the back as well as in the garage.
okay, because I would caution you with Central Avenue.
Yes.
being overloaded a couple times a day.
We've had this conversation numerous times. Yeah.
Okay, I think my third question, I see an egress window well, and that's in one of the bedrooms, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you not have to have it in both bedrooms?
So, get back to this.
Technically, I'll be counting one in the bedroom, the other will be used just kind of as an office or.
Well, so we have, if you look at page A3, we have a egress window in that stairwell, and that was my,
Oh,
that was my, yeah, that was my way around having another window well. I ultimately didn't want any window wells if possible, but we ended up putting one over to the bedroom number 2. But bedroom 1 has an egress window in the stairwell.
Oh.
You see what he
okay.
means? Part
Yeah.
of the reason.
It's on the side.
They could get out.
Yeah, yeah.
Part of the reason that we did just extend those stairs instead of just going into the backyard, out into the front as well, was to be able to get 3 full-size windows and a door there, so that in that lower level, it didn't feel like a basement. We're coming from our old house where we had light along the whole backside, so for us, the expense is warranted because then it allows us both to have egress from that bedroom and also light in the living room, but also to get a full door and full window in there too.
Ultimately, since we're excavating this entire thing as a deep basement, we have the ability to just go ahead and put the stair in, so.
Yes, I noticed that you have 3 steps down into the new basement.
Yeah,
What headroom will you get?
it'll be we'll maintain a 6-8 if we need to turn the rim board into a structural member. When I get to my structural engineering section of my project, if I have to have my rim board a structural right there, we'll just go ahead and replace the existing 2x10 with like a paralam, a 9 1/4 paralam or something if need be. So
I thought this was actually deeper than that. That's not really-
it is. So when you walk through here is what he's asking.
Oh, here. is the
Yeah,
6.
yeah, you want to get your headroom cleared. So that's your tight spot, your pinch when you're walking down the staircase. So I need to investigate that with my structural engineer when we get to it. So if I need to go with like, I'm sorry, I said 9 1/4. I meant like a 7 1/4, 5 1/4 by 7 1/4, something along those lines in order to make it a structural rim. Yeah, rim joist, I will. And we may have to do something with the existing floor joist above that to allow that headroom. So it's just something I'm going to approach with the structural engineer at the next phase.
So 6'8" would be your absolute minimum.
That's the minimum headroom clearance. Yeah.
That's on that one
Yeah.
stair above the three
Yeah.
steps down.
And then when you get down into the new basement,
Yeah.
what finished ceiling height will you
I
have?
think you said.
So we have an 8-foot pour, and so we'll probably it'll probably maintain an 8-foot where we have ductwork. We'll keep the ductwork to a minimum at the perimeter, do like a tray ceiling if we need to. I like to get creative with that. As long as my HVAC guys is working with me. But I like to keep my tray ceilings in my basement, so if I have to drop any soffits, I get my ductwork in my soffits, so.
Where are the AC units? I know right now they're where the stairway is.
Correct.
Yeah. If you look on the elevation sheets, A5 and A6, actually, I would say look at A6. On the roof, the flatter roof of that one portion of the addition, we want to get to two rooftop. 1 or 2 AC units up there. I think we're doing 2, right?
2.
Yeah, 2. I apologize. 2 condensers up there on the roof behind a solid screen to match the Chippendale railing style. So we'll probably do, if you can imagine a railing that's normally open, we'll put a piece of like exterior grade, a sheathing plywood behind it that'll be painted the same or a lighter color than the railing. So it's solid. You don't get to see through it, but
There'll still be a little.
there'll still be a little bit of contrast between the railing and the background piece. And of course, that fencing will be spaced enough away from the units for maintenance and such. So we're going a little commercial with this, with these HVAC or these AC units up on the roof, but with children, yards at a premium in this neighborhood, so.
Will you have sufficient air circulation
Around them,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
and through the?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, with the gentleman we've talked to and I spoke with, I actually talked to this guy who's working on another project for me in Clayton, and he was telling me about 24 inches clearance around any wall or fence for the HVAC unit to get proper circulation.
Okay. So
18 inches on one side, 24 on the other 2, and the other side should be fine.
So there are 2 units up there. They
Mhm.
will serve both the existing house and the new addition.
Yeah,
Okay, and they're relatively small to maintain that 24-inch minimum around it.
well,
They're general
yeah,
condenser size. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not
They're
smaller
usually
than average, but they.
24 to 30 inches.
yeah. I mean, we've got a little bit more space we can utilize up there. I mean, we may have to be able to scoot out a little bit towards the rear of the house with a longer section if we need to space them out. We have the room to do it and still stay hidden behind this screen. My goal was to keep the screen as close to the peak of the main roof, the existing roof, front to back. So obviously these are orthographic projection drawings, so you see them flat head on. But in perspective, real life, it'll be up there and you won't be able to see it, you know,
Yeah.
so. Well,
However,
from the front, at least.
the
from the front.
neighbors at
Yes.
509 will see it.
Correct.
And the neighbors on Merrimack directly to the west
Back.
will see it. Okay,
Yes,
well,
they'll see the one side.
right. Well, I would hope any way you can camouflage it. I would say, you know, maybe some sky color might work up there to make it look as hidden as possible.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about something like that. I was kind of thinking maybe closer to the roof colors, which is why we went with the blacks and the dark grays. I felt like that might blend with the roof shingles a little bit more. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that was my opinion.
Yeah, it will face on the front side. It will be behind the peak from the front, and it will be below that peak if I'm looking from the west
Yeah.
side looking east.
So
It will be below that peak here and also on that side. So I think realistically from where most people would see it, neighbors included, it will blend better with the roof to have it be those darker tones. Since behind
would
it.
agree with what Chris just said about
Yeah.
coordinating. Let's move around. Bridget, site plan.
Yeah, just in terms of site plan, so where the drainage is gonna be in the rear of, right now, I think there's a lot of drainage that comes onto the sidewalk, so just kind of understanding that, the pathway, and it gets icy in the winter, so I think that was one of the staff recommendations that talk up where the the dry well and the pop-up emitters will that be in the back of your yard or?
So we do have a pop-up emitter in the back of the yard.
Yeah.
If you look at sheet C 2.0, you can see that he's called that out.
Yeah.
It's in the middle, roughly in the middle back of the yard.
Okay.
So the actual dry well,
Yeah.
so having grown up in that neighborhood, unfortunately, that pathway has been like that since I was a child. We currently have a lot of water that sits in that lot from the surrounding lots that are just slightly above and filters down in there, so it's frequently pretty soggy. There is at present a dry creek along the back. The problem is that lowest corner is that corner by the pathway. So to try to figure out how to pull that water away, we've put the dry well on the other side to be able to pull the water to the other corner, which is closer to where it's coming from on the west lot and on the north side, hoping to catch that in that dry well before it makes its way across the yard to the current position where it's leaking out into the easement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just there is some sort of drain that comes from the existing house, like right now. And there is literally a drain pipe that goes down into the sidewalk. So I'm just hoping that will go away.
I don't even know what that is from, and there has been no water or anything on in the house for 18 months.
Okay.
There's been not a single sink in that house, and there's still water pouring from all different places. We're trying to figure out where some of those
Okay.
end and start. I'm not familiar with exactly what that is, but I would imagine that that will be taken care of by this because the plan is to rework that drainage to catch it
Right.
in the
And that's-
well, and then the dry creek before it gets down to.
Right. And that's what I just want to make sure that we're not having something that still comes off the gutters that goes onto the sidewalk.
We're very actively trying to mitigate that because we want to be able to use as much of that green space as possible. And right now it's been just a swamp. So
Okay.
we're very proactively approaching that.
The water that has come off the property has made at certain times of year, the entire walkway wet, and then it freezes. And it's difficult for the kids and older people to maneuver.
Yeah. It comes off that one and then it comes off the Slater's property catty corner on the other side of that easement
Right.
there. And they've got a French drain. We will have drainage along that side as well. So I'm hoping that this will solve that problem.
I think everyone in the neighborhood
Yes.
is
Yeah.
hoping
And
for a remedy.
the dry well that you mentioned, just to point it out once again on C 2.0, if you look behind the the parking pad at the rear of the house, you will see the dry well called out. It's got that 11.4 foot dimension to the north of it and the 22.0 foot dimension to the west of it. Okay.
Okay, and we also see on C 2.0 existing fences to remain, and I see the retaining wall to remain.
Correct.
And then I see where the two stairways are, and there's still a little bit of grass or something in between the two. The fence with the gate at the eastern end of the eastern stair, that fence will come out to the retaining wall, correct?
Correct. It will come out to the retaining wall, which flanks that southern border. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not sure what will be in that little 18-inch section between the two retaining walls. I assume likely some type of a gravel or something to absorb some of that water, maybe even another drain there.
yeah, okay. Sorry, Bridget, I didn't
Oh,
mean
that's
to
fine.
break in.
I think I'm good on site plan.
Okay. Ellen?
Yes, I have a question about the setback, the 30-foot setback at the rear.
Okay,
It appears that the 1-story plus loft part of the addition hangs over that. If you go to the civil C 1.0, and you can see where the 30-foot setback line is drawn, and then it goes right through the back end of the house.
so that's a cantilevered bay over the setback line, not foundation or whatnot, so.
That's a large bay. What are you going to do underneath it?
This bay right here, the door.
Oh.
As far as what's underneath it, I mean, I don't think we're gonna get much to grow underneath it, so it'd probably be just a landscape or a gravel bed of some sort.
Okay, what is the distance to the grade?
To grade.
Yeah.
So based upon the civil, we've got 1, 2, 3, so 18 inches.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That's it.
okay,
Nothing.
okay.
Amy?
I'm glad you clarified the walkway. It was a big question that I had also on that. And just about the screening for the AC units. I know you're trying to like, camouflage it into, your roof. So my question is, why would you use like a decorative element that you are using across the front also?
I understand the question. I feel like as much as we're trying to camouflage it or make it go away color wise, you're still gonna see something up there. I didn't want to do some sort of like picket fence kind of thing that just looks ho-hum. I wanted to make it look like other things on the house. Yeah, but intentional, but match the house. We have the Chippendale style railing or
Right.
whatever you want to call that. I keep calling it Chippendale.
No, I get what you're saying. I just
Yeah,
feel like
but-
you're like celebrating it a little bit, and it's kind of like it's more, I don't know. I just think you would want it to go away. I mean, I know it's there,
Yeah.
like clearly, but to like,
Yeah.
I think it's easier to see it boldly in black and white on this drawing. I think without on the front, the contrast will be clear. The house will be off white, the railings will be black. On the back side with that substrate or whatever we're using behind it, and then the very minimal contrast between the railing, I think it'll just make it look nicer than a box that we're pretending isn't there, but at the same time not call it out too much.
I just might think about that a little bit more, because you are doing a decorative, you're using that decorative element on the front to decorate your house, and then it's like I don't know, it seems like a miss, opportunity to not do that. I don't know.
Completely open to interpretation on whatever anyone.
Right,
wants. For us, it's more just about how do we make it as little intrusive to everyone else as possible.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of those, well, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, if I make
Sure.
it too plain, are we gonna have a problem with that? So-
Right. Just maybe not match the decorative. I don't know. It just seems
I
odd.
mean, yeah, I would
I'm
default,
completely
I
open
would,
to
I
it.
would be,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
open to change, yeah.
Carolyn?
Yeah, the only question I have about the entire project is for obviously the owners. Are you trying to make this into an Airbnb opportunity, or what is going on with all the entries and the stairs and the new addition?
It will not be used as an Airbnb. It will not have separate utilities and it will not be closed off from the interior space of the house. So there would be no way for us to use it as an Airbnb because it will be open to the existing basement and the basement rooms that are already there in the existing structure. We have family who lives an hour away who would like the opportunity to stay with us every now and then. And we also have a mother and son
Okay.
from Ukraine who live with us too.
It's
so
okay.
it
You
allows
you
them-
don't need to keep going. It's fine. I just wasn't sure because it seems excessive for, I mean, for family, it doesn't, nothing is excessive, frankly, to make family comfortable. I do have a comment about the landscape. It seems very sparse. I know it looks like a pretty plan, but the spacing of the species of plant seems very far apart. I would just watch that. I don't know that we can have any control there, but just watch that because you might end up with a bunch of mulch and a bunch of burned out plants. So
Okay.
Carolyn, are you referring to the west property line?
I am referring to the entire project for the landscape, the
Oh.
front, the back, the west.
Are you talking about spacing between the plants or between the, okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Just be careful about that. I mean, I would not, the best thing I can advise people, the best way, I guess, I should say it, to advise people is to make sure that you spend the money up front, because then you don't have as much maintenance and watering and everything else. And it's frustrating to me when I see like a plant 4 feet and then 4 feet again away from, the next plant. It's like they will grow in maybe, but probably not. They probably will burn out and die. So I would just spend the money up front. Frankly, it's really not that much. Landscape is very inexpensive.
Okay.
Well, I'm only saying that because when you put your house on the market in the future, that's what people see first. They will walk up to your house and go, that's a pretty landscape. Or they'll walk up and go, what? That's a bunch of mulch.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah,
Take
no,
that in
it-
advisement. Yeah, I'll speak with Bill and James at Baxter Gardens about it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Just my advice. That's
Thank
all I
you.
had. Other than everybody else's comments.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. David?
So my concern on the site plan would be the walkway that's right there. And so if you do the easement vacation, I just want Public Works to take a look at it to make sure that the city doesn't need the additional width to maintain that walkway.
That walkway has been, the easement that we're talking about, that 5 feet has been within the property line of this retaining wall for my entire life, and I'm 41. I don't see any reason why city would need that. And judging from the fact that Spire, Ameren, Missouri American Water, and the sewer company have all said that they have no current utilities there, and this easement is 100+ years old, I don't see any reason. I believe that actually when we met a couple months ago with a whole group, and there were no city utilities on that, or no city needs to maintain that easement. In fact, the water that we're talking about, the runoff, is now falling exclusively on us to mitigate that problem. So I don't see any reason why the city
Well,
would need to.
it's not necessarily that, it's the fact that the city can access that easement to maintain our asset. If we need to improve that walkway for some reason and get a skid steer or bobcat or access it for any reason, it's nice to have that extra width in order
Would you
to
like to see a
do
picture?
that work.
Because that doesn't exist now. I don't mean to be rude, but.
No, I understand, and there's fences all the way down it and everything
there's
else. And
retaining walls on both sides.
there's easements along that as well, but we can't even stand on that retaining wall if there's not an easement there. Or set things on it if we're working on that walkway. It's that type of concern.
I mean, I don't think.
I just wanted to verify or have our Public Works Department verify that they're okay relinquishing that easement just because the city is responsible for the maintenance of that sidewalk. And I just want to make sure this doesn't preclude us from.
Is that something like a
There-
maintenance agreement? That
Order.
could be
So-
in order with you?
We, o-
I'm sorry.
we only need 2
Yeah,
feet of that
But
easement. in
potentially,
order-
I just want to make sure that if
Okay.
it goes away, if there's something we need to supplement that existing easement with
Mhm.
in order to maintain that right to access, then perhaps that's something we take a look at.
If
So
you,
there may be some way to work that out, but I just want to make sure that if we vacate it for some reason, we need to get back there with some sort of equipment or anything else. That restriction on access doesn't preclude us from doing the work we need to do.
Okay.
So,
I understand entirely
I mean,
what
with
your
an
intent is.
easement, while we wouldn't typically do it, we could tear out fences, we could take out retaining walls, whatever it is to maintain the asset that we have
Sure.
the right to access, and that easements utilized in some cases for that to happen. Not saying that would happen here, but I just want to make sure before we relinquish that right to access, That's
I'm-
not gonna potentially put us in a bad spot.
I'm
So-
not even really asking for that. What we need is 2 feet of that easement in order to be able to fill the foundation for that wall that will then support the landing for our lower level access.
There-
There's still 3 feet there that you could access. We'd be happy to enter into a maintenance agreement to
Yeah.
allow you
Yeah,
use of that.
There's
Gotta be
there's
a way to
deep
work around it.
footing. Yeah, there's a deep or
Yeah.
wide footing for that retaining wall because of the nature of the structure that we need to grab some of that space. So,
Yeah, the only way for us to be able to get that walk out to the lower level, which is a deal breaker on us being able to operate the space as we'd like, was to be able to do that. And I'm, we're willing to work with the city however necessary
Okay.
to
I
make.
mean, if we could we just put a condition on there that Public Works review and approve the? Yeah, you got it there. Great. Perfect. I think we can work around it. I just
Okay,
want to make sure we can access the area if we need to.
David.
Is it on the
Okay.
site plan?
I want to go back quickly to the air conditioner surround,
okay,
and I'm looking at A7,
okay.
and I agree the dark color works well with the roof color, but I also see a lot of horizontal hardy board in there. So I would recommend that maybe you consider something simpler than the what we see, whatever it is. That just maybe a simple horizontal cover.
do that.
I think it might be a little more palatable to the residents living around where they don't have something that draws their eye up to an intricate design, that it's just very simple.
Sure. Okay.
Any comments from the audience? This is on basic site plan. Come on up. No, we have to have it recorded.
At 509 South Central. I guess I hadn't focused at all on the air conditioning. It's going to be up. Where is it in relation to our bedroom? Because I'm concerned about the noise. I'm used to condensers being on the ground, not being a problem when you're in your bedroom. We want to sleep with our windows open. You want to run your air conditioner. Are we going to be bothered by the noise? It's one of my questions. And then on the easement, stairs that are close to the retaining wall. I'm not an architect. I don't know this stuff, but isn't there a setback requirement for the surrounding back, front, side of the lots? And if so, does this require a variance? My
Okay.
questions.
Thank you. The air conditioner, Chris, could there be some acoustic material put in there to help the neighbor?
Absolutely. We could create a screen system that's sort of like a insulated soundboard on the unit side, and then like the horizontal panel on the opposite side, the side that they will see. I can't speak to what it specifically will do, but I do know sound travels in waves. And so if there's a screen right in front of it, it's going to block a good portion of that. But some of those sound waves, when they get tall, some will go over that structure. I don't know where I don't know which side you are on. If I'm facing the house, you're on the north side. Okay. So that side could be insulated with a thicker panel, since it's the closest resident to that item.
I would suggest you might consider doing the north and the west.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that would likely be farther towards Polo than your bedroom. If your bedroom is on the addition in the back, this will be.
Please make sure to use the microphone. It's recorded, and then Carolyn, who's online, can only hear if.
Sorry about that. So this is the current garage, where that garage ends. It will be directly above right there. So if your bedroom is on the addition portion, it will likely be here. This is the third floor. I don't know, I'm not sure where your bedroom is in relation to the house, but your addition goes farther back.
On the other side, on the left side.
You know, this is where your house is. This is the north side. This is the house. This is the current existing garage. This is the proposed addition. So this is the air conditioning unit here. Okay, like you said, we could do some acoustic panels. It's on the third floor too, so it will be above that. I'm not sure how the sound would travel down from there, but we can do whatever panels are necessary or move it farther towards the back if that's more agreeable. Offset from where their bedroom would be.
Yeah, I mean, it will be important to kind of consider. I mean, of course, a lot of these newer units are much quieter than like
Yeah.
old ones, but you know, because I mean, you don't want to get to a place where it's really, really loud, like St. Louis County will come out and, I mean, you don't want to have to rip out
We
your
have-
HVAC.
We have
so
zero intent of ever causing any harm to anyone,
Yeah.
so we would
I
be
just don't want you to
conscious
get in a
about that.
place where you have to move it or something. So yeah, I mean, making sure that you have a efficient unit and
So
so they're a lot quieter. The new ones are much quieter than they used to be, so.
what I would like to do though, then is to speak to the HVAC guy to find out what's the height of this unit, and then to see if he knows the sound, like if they have some sort of chart that we can look at to see how tall that
The
fence
fence would
screen
need
needs
to
to
be to
be
block it.
in order to maximize the sound blocking.
Right.
I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking to the microphone. Did you hear me? So, maximize the height of that as, without going too high above that,
We wouldn't wanna go above the
front
peak because then it'd be visible from the front.
ridge.
Well, from the street, everything is foreshortened. So
Exactly.
You're not gonna see it even if.
Even if I
it's-
was a foot above the ridge, you might not see it,
Right.
but yeah.
So I think we're more concerned with the view from 509 next door.
Okay,
And secondly, from the view from the rear of the homes on Merrimack, directly to the west.
right.
I don't remember the address number. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Fader?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Gary Fader. I live at 623 South Central down the street from the project. Also one of the Ward 3 aldermen. I don't normally speak at these meetings, although I attend fairly frequently, and I usually don't because most zoning matters eventually make it to the Board of Aldermen, so I've never felt compelled to say anything at these meetings. I have a bit of concern because these particular matters, the site plan and the architectural review, will not get to the Board of Aldermen unless there is some appeal, assuming recommendations are made by the Plan Commission and the ARB. If there was an appeal, it would make it to the board, but if there's not, this is the decision here is kind of the end of the road. And so I do feel compelled to note my concern that the applicants, I think, have indicated, I think there was a reference, they haven't had water in the property for 18 months, and I think that's because they've had control of the property for 18 months. There's currently posted on the house and has been since early May a stop work order on any construction of any kind on the house. And the stated reasons from the sign that's on the door is for a failure to obtain required permits from the city, number one, and a failure to appear in municipal court. The fact that that situation exists and has existed, and that we're now talking about the same applicants moving forward, I think is a matter of concern. I don't know entirely what the solution to that is, but I think it is a fair concern. History tends to be a pretty good predictor of the future. And so whatever is approved here, I think we have to deal with this past history, at least to the extent of wondering if whatever is appealed will ultimately lead to further stop work orders, failure to get permits, failure to appear in court. Certainly it would be my hope that this is behind us and that the project moving forward would not have these kinds of issues. But this is, I think, a unique situation where the applicant has had control of the property and has obviously had a series of difficulties dealing with the city. So to me, the question is, as we move forward, how is this going to be enforced? This is not a typical situation given the past history. I don't know what's within the purview of the Plan Commission. My comments relate to the Architectural Review Board in the same way. To at least guarantee that if this project goes forward, we will not have recurrent problems with the site as we have in the last year and a half. So I think that is something that needs to be dealt with. If it can be dealt with here at the Plan Commission, ARB, I think that would be helpful. If not, then if there is an appeal or appeals, then I would hope there would be a way of dealing it with at the Board of Aldermen. But in any event, living down the street, I'd love to see something positive happen here. It has certainly not been a very attractive site for the last year and a half. So I'm very much supportive of seeing something happen here. I have no objection to these applicants being the ones who proceed with the project. But again, I think the history here suggests that something has to be done to assure compliance as we go forward. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to offer the applicant, please come back.
It was never our intention to allow this much time to lapse between purchasing the property and beginning the rehab. Unfortunately, I had a health illness last fall, which left me hospitalized for several weeks and left me recovering until this day. And that unfortunately left us with some material delays. During that time, we also took in a mother and son from Ukraine, who we allowed to live in our home and have reworked our entire lives in order to accommodate. They have become family and they will continue to live with us. During that time, our plans have materially changed from building an addition off the back for our family of 2 kids and 2 parents to now this non-traditional sort of multi-family situation. Multi-family meaning Angela, Nikita, my husband and I living under the same space. No work has been completed on this property since 6 months after it was purchased. The reason there has been there's a stop work order on it because we have neighbors who had called repeatedly anytime anyone was there, even just doing landscaping. Police have been called on people mowing the lawn in that yard, so we can't even get people to go over there and do lawn work because of the harassment that they've faced from neighbors. It's just been a really uncomfortable and unpleasant situation for all of us. It's never been my intent to ever have a crossword with a neighbor, nor to live next to someone with whom I don't get along or have any animosity. This has been our dream for years, to build our forever home for our family, and that's all we intend to do with this. The other setback that we've had is that the backyard is a swamp. We've already acknowledged that. We didn't have any idea the scope of that when we purchased this property. And because of that, we've had to do extensive water table testing and excavation to figure out where that water is coming from, whether it's a broken irrigation head on someone else's property that's flowing, whether there's an irrigation line that's not being used under this property that's been broken, whether it's a suspended aquifer that's causing water to bubble up even when there's not rain. So there have been environmental factors beyond the scope of anything we ever imagined that have caused delays on this property. So it isn't for lack of trying, and it isn't because we just were trying to be jerks, for lack of a better way to put it. Unfortunately, that is what's happened. And I believe that in the specific guidelines, a performance bond is even required by the city in order to ensure that that is completed in a timely fashion. And as far as being compliant with all municipal codes, laws, bylaws, ARB, we're standing here right now to make sure that those things are both accounted for currently and that code violations are inspected as construction is beginning. Everything will be done with permits according to the letter of the law. So I'm not sure how else there can be an enforcement mechanism beyond being punitive that would do anything other than exactly what the law is intending to do here.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question. Earlier, you indicated that you had family an hour or so away that might at times come and stay.
Yeah.
I assume that's temporary.
That'd be like a night or two when they
Short
don't want to
term.
drive home. Yeah.
Right, but now you've just said you've invited a Ukrainian.
They've been living with us since June 1st of 2022.
Are they relatives?
By choice now, yes.
That doesn't really.
No,
answer
they're
the
not
question.
biological relatives, no. It doesn't violate any city ordinances or any, you can have 3 unrelated people, their mother and son, my husband and our 2 children are a family, and they can choose to live with us at our discretion. I don't see why that's,
I'm just asking for an explanation of those two things. Okay?
because out of the goodness of our heart, we'd like to help 2 people who are fleeing war. So I guess I don't see why that's of concern.
No, I heard conflicting things, so I wanted it clarified. I would like to hear from staff, if possible, about the stop work order on failure to apply for permits and appearances in court. Does that have any bearing on this?
Sure. So that is an ongoing case in municipal court. So that handling of that case is out of our hands. Now that it's filed within the court, that's the judge that would need to make a decision on that. It is connected to this in that a big part of the stop work order and the court case is related to them starting to do work without permits. What they're here for right now is starting the process of obtaining the correct permits to then go back and finish the work that they had started previously.
There was
So
no,
right now, the 2 requests here for site plan review and architecture are required before they can apply for their building permits, the construction permits that are associated with some of the work that was already begun. So that's how they're connected. But this approval tonight or any conditions that you place on it, anything like that, doesn't change whatever the judge might decide to do with the existing court case, that you have no purview over action related to that.
Okay, but before they could go forward with any permits, they would have to receive approval from the Plan Commission and the ARB.
For the work that they're trying to do right now, that you're reviewing tonight, this requires approval of site plan and architectural review before a building permit. Now, if they were to remove the whole addition and just wanted to do the work inside of the existing structure, they could obtain a building permit for that without your review, but they would still need a permit to complete all of that. Instead, knowing that they wanted to do the addition, I'm assuming the goal is to have this approval and then apply for a building permit that covers all of the scope of work.
the case that's in front of the court now was a misunderstanding. We met with them. There was inadequate ground coverage of green surface is what they called it. So we sodded the whole front yard. And I thought that that was the adjudication of that case until I received something last week that says now we need to appear on the 14th because I'm not sure why. I thought the building inspector had signed off on that. We had a meeting with several people from the city discussing exactly what would qualify as such. We didn't want to sod the yard before then ripping up the whole house and tearing some of that out. So we did go ahead and seed and straw the whole front yard. And then that was, I thought, the end of that case that's now going to be heard on the 14th at 9 a.m.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, but going back to what you said, Anna, we have no jurisdiction over the court case or the permits, but before they could get any permit, they must get through the ARB and the Plan Commission. Sort of seems like a circular.
It is a little bit of that. Once a case is filed within municipal court, even if you abate the violation, once it's gotten to the level of municipal court, the inspector doesn't even have the ability to just end the court case. So part of that is that you have to actually appear in court so the judge can make a decision. And that's okay. So that's a little bit, that's kind of why it's still hanging out there, even though you seeded and strawed and some of the other issues. But in order to obtain a construction permit for an addition, they need this a site plan and architecture review approval. In order to abate the other violations for some of the construction activity with inside of the house, they could file for building permits and obtain construction permits related to that work separately of what they're doing right now. But if they want to do the project that you've reviewed that's in front of you tonight, they need a site plan approval and an architecture approval before a building permit.
Okay,
Anna-
I need to say something here.
ahead.
I'm uncomfortable with voting on this tonight. I think we need more information. Yeah, I know you're frustrated.
But
You're not being punished, okay?
I understand
hear
that,
me
but
out
this-
for a
Lauren,
second.
please
sorry.
let Carolyn talk.
Hear me out for a second. I just don't understand what's going on. And can we have 1 week to review everything again and come back? Is there like, what kind of urgency do we have here?
Can I speak to the urgency? Because at this point, we're now 2.5 months past when we initially intended to file the paperwork because of, we're trying to do this in a timely manner and we're being penalized for not doing it in a timely manner. Yet every time we try to do something in a timely manner, we're not met with basic decency, even from neighbors, to be able to do it. Our impetus to be here was to get neighbors to sign off on being notified that we had intended to build an addition. All of the neighbors knew that. The neighbor who spoke refused to sign off on the notice saying that she'd been notified, even though I left paper copies on her doorstep. I reached out to her personally via cell phone to say, please let me know if you have any questions. I'd like to answer any questions. I want to be able to make this right for you. And I was told that they'd be back in 30 days and then they would still not be signing anything. So at this point, the urgency is that we're up against pouring a foundation before it gets too cold. So
Can I ask
Okay.
you a question? So first, you're Lauren, I'm,
that's true. I have the receipts. and
can
the
I,
text
hey,
messages.
can just look up here.
I'm sorry. I'm
It's just not,
so
it's not worth
frustrated.
it. So your name is Lauren. I guess I'm a little confused. Who are Ann and Kevin Davis?
They're
Is
my
it-
in-laws, my husband's parents. We purchased the property. Part of the delay was that we had issues getting a construction loan to fund the property. So they purchased it from us and are footing the bill. And at the end, when we can purchase it back from them as a completed project, it will be theirs. You have in that packet a signature stating that we've got the power of attorney to execute all communications and plans on this as the.
I just didn't remember. I was confused.
Yeah, that's
Because
okay.
I thought you said your name was Lauren and I
Yeah.
was like, my second comment to you is that if I stopped mowing my grass, if I stopped taking care of my home, I too would be cited and taken to court. So this has, but I want to be clear that this has nothing to do with your neighbors.
No.
You and your husband were taken to court because in Clayton and in all surrounding neighborhoods, you can't allow your property to fall into total disrepair.
That's not what I'm speaking to.
Okay,
What
I'm
I'm
just-
talking about, we had the police show up at our doorstep because the neighbor on the other side got a construction dumpster. And the neighbor accused us of having the dumpster. It wasn't even our dumpster. There's a certain point where it goes beyond just like, I have no problem maintaining the property to a minimum standard, but there does get to be a point where it ceases to be maintained to a minimum standard. And literally, if someone comes out into their front yard and starts yelling at the guy mowing the lawn, that I think breaches.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm just, I
now
want to
we've
be, I
done-
just want, Carolyn, one
sorry.
second. I just want to be clear that this should not be,
Okay, go ahead.
this is something that it fell way below the minimum standard.
And I
of
don't
disrepair.
deny that.
So I
that's-
just want to be clear that there should not be any fault held with your surrounding neighborhoods, nor with any of the people walking by your home on a daily basis.
don't
So,
have
and I
anyone
think it's
walking by my
wonderful.
home.
Well, people walk by your house all the time. There's an elementary school.
no,
I'm just saying people in the surrounding. I hope that this project is eventually approved in some fashion, because it would be wonderful if it looked like this. But I think you can understand people's concern that nothing will again happen with this property for a year. And that is what are all concerned.
And that is why we've transferred the ownership in order to make, my in-laws are the bank, essentially. That's what's
Okay.
happening. And then. at
And
the end,
I
we'll
mean,
purchase
I
it.
understand that. I mean, I understand that. I guess my other question, and I think it is incredibly admirable that you have taken in Ukrainian mother and son. I mean, absolutely incredibly admirable. But I am not sure, and this might be a question for Anna and David, like we have, so for instance, if somebody builds, a lot of times people in Clayton will have a garage and they'll build something above their garage. And
Yes.
it's technically called a mother-in-law suite. People call it different
The
things.
conditional use permit, we've already gone back and forth with the city upon the applicability of
Can
this.
you let me finish though? In order to build something like that, people have to be related, like you sign something so I'm trying to understand. I just want to make sure that before you build this, then they can actually live there, because I'm not sure that they
I've-
can. So I just want to
Council
be
has already
clear.
confirmed that there is nothing keeping anyone of my choosing beyond the 3 unrelated people in St. Louis County from living in my house, provided it is not a nuisance to anyone else.
I just want to make sure that we're all.
I
on the same
understand that, but I
page.
will
So,
respectfully, I will not be told that I cannot elect to have 2 refugees under my care financially living in my home. That is not. I will fight that tooth and nail because that is against anything that anyone in a progressive area like Clayton would stand for.
I'm not, again, ma'am, I think it's very admirable. I just, again, want to make sure we're all on the same page so that you want to build, like you said, your dream homes. And again, I think it's incredibly wonderful that you've brought these people into your home. But I just want to make sure that you can do it because this is
Would you like
never.
me to call my attorney right now? And
No,
he can
I
speak?
don't. I don't. I just want to make it clear to the rest of the room before, again, that, because you've just repeated many times that you're going to have them live with you. And I want to make sure that if we go forward and this happens, that there's nothing, you know, because if somebody wanted to build a mother-in-law suite and because we ask them all the time, who's going to live there? And people will say, oh, my father is coming to live with us. And we ask people that all the time. So I just, again, want to make sure because these people are unrelated that it's, you know, okay, under city code. That's all I'm stating. So, yeah.
Carolyn, did you have a comment?
I have about 500, but I'm gonna hold off. Let's go to Helen.
Did you have something else? No, okay. We've already gone around the room. Carolyn, I am leaning toward your request that we hold this off. I think the more we get into it, the more questions we are hearing. I know the city wants the Public Works to review the easement issue. I would like to see a little more response on what Bridget was asking about.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to
Sorry.
see a little more about that.
I'm sorry, I'm not about what you'd like
Well,
to see.
please,
documentation
we're
of it.
speaking.
I'm just,
You'll have your chance. Just please wait.
just asking what, because I'm trying to make note in my mind of what.
We're getting there. Please calm down. We're getting out of hand here. So I'd like to have a little more information come at our next meeting, giving you time and the city to work with you again, because some of the things that have come up really we were unaware of in our staff report. That doesn't mean it was missing from the report. It just seems like they are additional items. So I feel that I'm not ready to go forward at this point, and I'd like to know what everyone else feels. Carolyn, I think you already indicated that.
Yes, I believe that there is passion all around on several topics. I feel like the owner is trying to do a good thing. But I need to know exactly, for me to vote, I need to know what the real story is here. Because I don't know. I just don't trust it. Sorry, my spidey sense is
I
up.
just want to make sure that we're really clear. If people are uncomfortable voting on this, that's totally fine.
Right.
But we need to be very clear about what information is needed to apply the zoning code and to apply the architectural design guidelines to this particular set of applications. So I realize that we've talked about the municipal code and an ongoing court case, but when we're applying the zoning code, that doesn't directly correlate. You know, the issue of a family and the definition of a family and those types of matters as well. That's something we can certainly take a look at and discuss with the city attorney or with staff. But again, when it comes to the site plan and the design of the building, if really quickly, Carolyn, if I could,
Hold on.
Sorry.
I just want to make sure that the Plan Commission and the Architectural Review Board are applying the standards that are in our code of ordinances that relate to zoning and that relate to architectural design to these particular applications. If it's a building code matter, we can take that up through code enforcement and through our building inspectors. If it's a matter of a definition of a family, that's something we can look at as well. But that doesn't necessarily have any impact on site plan characteristics, setback, drainage, those types of items. So I just want to make sure that we're focused on the particular items that are at hand here and that are within the purview of the Plan Commission and the Architectural Review Board. So if we need to table this to make a decision later, I think if we want more information related to the easement, if we want more information related to the screening of rooftop units, those types of zoning matters, I think that's a legitimate reason to table it. If the concern's just general, I'm not sure what's going on, we need to have a little more specificity as it relates to the zoning code or as it relates to architectural standards, so that we can advise them on what to bring back to us, because those other matters, while important to the community, obviously, and we've heard from a lot of people tonight, they're somewhat separate from zoning. So I just want to make sure that we're staying on target with our task here.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Carolyn, did you have a comment?
Yes, I want to say that I believe my initial gut reaction and analysis of the drawings tells me that this property wants to create an environment or Airbnb sort of situation for other people to live there. And that is how I took it. And sorry, but you know, I can see different staircases and other things and all of that. I just, you know, I mean, I hear what they're saying and their intentions, but the drawings tell me, and if we're gonna go with legal drawings here, the drawings tell me that they're setting that property up for other people to come in and live there. That's all I have to say.
So I will just say that the use of the property and that the city does not allow Airbnbs or other temporary uses, and that is regulated outside of site plan review and architectural review. So again, as David said, we need to, if there are elements that relate to stormwater runoff, setbacks, material questions, again, related back to the criteria for review that's in your staff report that you need additional information on to understand whether or not this property is mitigating those concerns, then we can add that. But if the concern is about potential use or occupancy of this structure once it is completed, that would fall under other sections of our enforcement code. And whether or not this gets a conditional use permit, is it classified as an accessory dwelling unit or not within their basement, the operational characteristics are actually exactly the same. So the idea of renting the structure out applies to this structure, whether it's classified as an accessory dwelling unit or not. They still can't rent it out to other occupants. They still cannot list the house on Airbnb. So again, I think we should focus back on those criteria for review that's listed in the site plan staff report. And if there are items there that you need additional information on, please provide more detail on what your questions are so that as staff, we can make sure to get the necessary and appropriate information from the applicants.
So just to clarify real quick, so we approve the site plan. We're not saying you can rent this. We're just saying like, this is a site plan that we've approved based on all the things.
Correct.
By law, we can't rent it.
Right. So I'm just saying if our approval does not say, go rent this.
We base our decisions as a
Right.
plan commission when we're applying zoning to it on the physical characteristics of the structure, not necessarily the use. That's going to be a separate
Doesn't even
consideration.
close off to the interior of our house. So like.
Right. I just think we're probably trying to figure out if we approve this, we're making sure that we're not saying
Yeah.
all the things. Okay.
And Lauren, what you just said is how I initially read it as potentially 2 units. But after going through it and receiving more information from staff, I realized that the lower level is just an integral part of the entire house. It is not a second unit the way the drawings are drawn currently.
Correct.
So I appreciate the staff's comments, even though I see I have a lot of questions, but I do think if we stick with the Plan Commission review, there is the Public Works review that we've talked about. There's potential easement questions that could be answered. And we also talked about the AC noise attenuation on there. Otherwise, I think the 2 conditions in there also would appear to be valid. So I would say if we would add a couple other items to it, I would be ready to go forward with it and leave the other legality issues up for a later time.
I would also recommend that while we're all here this evening, I know we haven't talked about architectural review yet, but if there are outstanding items that folks might want to see on that, then we should probably let them know that too, so that when they come back next time. We just talked about site plan at this point, so
Right.
I figured you'll get to the next one, but I just want to make sure we've got a nice list.
You think we'll get to the next one tonight?
Well, I mean, if the idea is we're gonna
Yeah.
table this and give them a list of items, then we can move on to the architectural review, and if there are outstanding items that are needed there as well, then let's go ahead and compile everything and see if we can get through it at the next meeting.
I think that's a good idea to go through it. And
Yeah, and then make the decision. So in other words, we should really not vote on the plan commission.
We can do it either way. We can vote to table the site plan application with those particular items outstanding. But then I would suggest that we still talk about the architectural review this evening and then figure out if there's enough information there to make a decision on that particular application or not. And if not, then let's give them those list of items as well, so that they can come back prepared for both the architectural review and the site plan review at the next meeting.
I think we should go through architectural
Okay.
and
Just
look at
wanted to make sure.
everything as a whole
Okay.
tonight. So
Great. Thank you.
let us avoid voting on the plan review at this point, go through architectural review and then decide how to go. So you in agreement with that, applicant? Continue on. Okay, we will. Ryan, will you start us off?
So the home comprises of brick of varying reds and pinks with white trim accents and an asphalt shingle roof. A concrete drive on the north side of the property leads to a rear access garage. The existing brick is proposed to be painted off-white. New black windows are proposed for all sides of the home. The addition facades are proposed to be James Hardy panel siding, also referred to as stucco sometimes in those plans. The proposed panels would be painted off-white to match the brick paint. Per the architectural review guidelines, the primary building material of each facade should be brick or stone, and that second materials may include siding but should not account for more than 25% of each facade. The rear and both side facades fall below the requirement that brick and stone comprise at least 75% of a facade. Homes on this block of South Central Avenue comprise red brick with white trim accents. Stone can be found as an accent material on some nearby properties. Secondary materials exceeding the limit established in the architectural review guidelines are not present on this block of South Central. Staff are of the opinion that the applicant should revise the facade to comply with the architectural review guidelines. A new concrete porch is proposed that would wrap the south side of the home. Stairs are proposed on the east and west sides of the south facade to connect to the basement, the front and rear yards. The rear yard is proposed to contain a new concrete patio and path. The path will connect to a new concrete driveway. New plantings are proposed on the front, rear, and south side yards. Existing fences on adjacent property lines are proposed to remain. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed addition and improvements will enhance the property and complement the surrounding neighborhood, but the proposed facade material should be revised to comply with the architectural review guidelines. Staff recommend approval with the following conditions. One, that rear and both side facades should be revised to include a brick or brick veneer comprising at least 78% of the facade, and that any front yard pavings should match the city standard pour with an 8.5 sack mix of Merrimack sand and gravel.
Okay, thank you. The applicant?
So, can I come around front and put this up? Just
Sure.
Okay, so, it's a two-story addition on the rear of the house with a full basement, and passing very similar to the home. Then we're gonna be putting an addition.
Chris, if you could go and speak.
Here you go. I know it's awkward, but if you want to hold that.
Okay.
Stand
I
up.
feel like I'm really important now.
Yeah, also Carolyn, who's online, can't see your boards.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
If I rotate it?
Because then they wouldn't be able to see it.
Okay, okay. Sorry, Carolyn.
Describe it.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so the difference between what's on the screen and what I have here is those pictures are so small, they don't show you the horizontal lines we're trying to achieve with our material. And I'll get into that in a second. But we're doing a two-story addition on the rear of the home. Like I said, that sort of matches the massing of the existing structure. So if you look at this is the addition, and this sort of mass like this matches the mass of the house going this way. So, and if anybody remembers me from past presentations, I'm big on texture. I don't like all brick, I don't like all siding, and I don't like all stone. I like a mixture of materials. So when we laid this out, we wanted to go with a cementitious hardy panel with a sort of a stucco finish. And we are trying to achieve this sort of feel to the structure. So sort of this stone banding with the horizontal lines to sort of separate the panels and accentuate the horizontal. And so that's kind of what we did here with these. And then the brick and the hardy cementitious hardy panels will be painted all the same color. Once again, I like texture. I'm not a big fan of one item only on a house. Black railings, black trim, black doors, black windows. We've all seen this color palette 100 times, and it looks good. That's why we keep seeing it. So.
Well, it does look good. I have to admit that, but I have a couple comments on the material. I like hardy board, but I think there's too much of it. I support the staff recommendation that it not exceed the 25% on any one facade. I'd be open to varying that 25 a little bit, but when we get up to 80% or over, I think it's just too much for the neighborhood. Secondly, I liked what you showed. It looked like a very bold building, but I don't think that's what we have here. We have what we're looking, and I know, Carolyn, you can't see it, but the solid to void on these pictures is vastly different from a residential house. The residential house actually is probably closer to a 50-50 solid to void, where this looks like it's a 80 to 90% solid.
You're speaking of fenestration versus solid wall, correct?
Correct.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I strongly agree with the staff recommendation to include brick or brick veneer comprising at least 75% of the facade. Now, if that were 70% in reality, I could deal with that. Also on the hardy board, and I see the dimension, and it looks like the dimension is 18 to 24 inches between panels. I think that's very commercial. I don't feel that that's residential scale at all. And we do have other hardy board areas in the city, but they are much more like wood siding, which typically is 6 to 8 or 9 inches. So that would be my recommendation. But you can respond to that.
It was more of the limestone sizes of, a 24 by 36 or an 18 by 36 proportions of limestone. So wanted to achieve that horizontal band. I didn't want to go too skinny. I felt like it was going to be candy striped, for instance, right?
We didn't want it to look like siding. We wanted it to give the appearance of stone, like on a lot of the brownstones. You'll see this exact kind of formation around parts of it. This is not because we envisioned the whole building looking like this. This is just to show the texture, because a lot of people think of like board and batten, and it's not that Tudor. It's the opposite to where the board is going above the batten. So it gives the appearance of stone with that texture. And then when painted the same, it would look more like a Mediterranean kind of stone as opposed to a siding.
There'll be a
Was the-
recess between the bands. There'll be a recess instead of a batten sticking out. It'll be like a reglet, like a Z.
So will the upper panel overlap the lower panel?
No, they'll be in plane with each other. There'll be an element, a metal trim piece that makes that grout joint, empty grout joint.
I
So
still
it's not
feel,
that siding like that, it'd be flat.
thank you for describing it. I think it would look really good on a commercial building. I am not comfortable with the scale of it at all, or with the massive amount of the hardy board. And I think hardy board is a great product, but let's face it, even if you paint it, it's going to look like a board. It's really not going to be like a stone. So I'm concerned, but I'd like
It
to.
is a stucco texture, by the way, and not to interrupt you. I just want to make sure I don't know if I said that. It's not a smooth, it is a sanded finish.
Okay.
Okay.
Before, let's go around and hear everybody, if they have any comments. Bridget?
I mean, I would just, I mean, I do love the look of the addition as a whole. I mean, I think the way you were saying, like the cream and the brick, and I mean, I think it will, and the black, I mean, I think it will look beautiful. But it's hard, you know, people come here all the time, you know, and it has to be a certain amount of brick to match kind of like what the original house looked like. So, I mean, a lot of, you know, I think people find that I do support new things and, you know, new textures, new materials, but, it's difficult when it becomes this much. Like what Steve said, if it's close, I would absolutely support that. But when you're kind of like almost doubling the size of your home with a material that the original home is not, that's, I think, where it becomes problematic. But I do love the look. I mean, I think it looks very pretty. It will look very nice when it's done, but it's just hard for me, I guess, was to support that large of a difference in the material between the brick and the hardy board. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, and I think they would look nice maybe in certain parts, but for so much of it, it's just hard. Yeah.
Ellen?
I agree with Steve and with Bridget in their comments. And I would add that the massing is fine. I have no problems with that. But the material that you're clothing it with is wrong.
Amy?
I agree also. I'm just also curious, are those all going to be new?
Yes.
Like across all facades?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so their point, I mean, if you look at that front elevation, I think like mixing the materials like you claim you like to do, I think makes sense when it's, you know, you have a dominant one, you know, shown, and then when you get to all the other spaces, it just doesn't work. And I think, you know, unfortunately, this house is very obvious. It's not like you're hiding your side elevations. It's through a main walkway. So it's pretty evident, you know, that half the house is not, you know, the brick. So, yeah, so I agree with staff recommendation.
May I speak to that real quick?
But we've got two more people.
Oh,
Carolyn?
I'm sorry. I forgot.
Carolyn, you still there? Oh, she dropped off? Okay. David?
Yeah, I don't know. Without seeing a sample, it's really hard for me to visualize. I mean, the drawings help, but I don't know that I've seen that product necessarily. And not being a designer, I guess I'm just not around that stuff enough. But, anyhow, so I'm struggling a little bit to figure out what that might look like at this scale. I don't know if, you know, the veneer portion of it got up closer to 75%, if that would lessen that impact of having the taller board, so to speak. I'm not sure. That's the part I'm struggling with a little bit, is trying to figure out what that product with the, as you said, the metal in between the two, or you know, what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why.
Or walking
I
past.
know, and I know that this isn't exact, but it's kind of the metal Z flashing, the termination strip, the reglet, whatever we're gonna call it, between the panels is try to give you that grout joint, to give you that stone feel is really what we're.
Is there somewhere this has been done locally? Point to as an example?
Yeah,
Or
I
is
mean,
there-
I guess
is
I
there a sample from a vendor that could potentially.
I
fill this
could
like or
absolutely get a
mock up?
sample. I mean,
I don't know if that would help
it's-
anybody else, but I guess I don't know if anybody would even be willing to consider a board with that height, but personally, it's just tough. for me
So
to-
the product comes in like 4x12 sheets. If you picture a large piece of cementitious plywood, essentially, it's it's a cement impregnated kind of material that's very
This is a
durable,
hardy
very
board and the
waterproof.
stucco. This is just
And
bigger.
it's got a
and
stucco standard finish on it.
abandoned
Yeah, I think everybody here
Sure.
is probably knows what it is, so.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's all. Go ahead.
To respond to you, David, I'm more concerned about the percentage of brick versus the percentage
Mhm.
of the hardy board. As far as if we could get that moving, then I would look at the size, the vertical distance of the hardy board and see what really would fit. Right now, I think it's too big a piece, even with the reglet that's in there. So I think we need to look at this again.
Can I respond now? I'm sorry. Okay, so is there a little bit of flexibility? I know that we have percentages that that Clayton sets up for parameters, but like what you were saying, if we can come up with something that looks good and maybe doesn't quite make it to what was the number, Ryan? I apologize. 75%. If it doesn't quite make it to 75%, but we think it looks good, is that like, are we gonna kind of come to an agreement on something like that when we come back for that? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
For me, and I imagine the rest of the board,
Yeah,
I would be willing to look at that. What I would caution you is that it should not be 50-50. I think we are looking for substantially more than 50% of traditional masonry, similar to what Bridget was saying, the original material on the house. Even though it's going to be painted,
yeah.
it will still look like brick. And I'm not saying it has to be 75% or even 74%. I think you need to look at it from the design
Right,
side.
and that's kind of what
what
I'm
it
getting at.
is.
Yeah,
What looks correct with the relationships of the solid and void, the envelope versus the window. You have to take into account because you have three sides that you'll have to deal with.
okay.
That's my feeling. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in on that. Lauren?
Yes, can I comment? So when we had talked about designing this to look like stone panels, we didn't want it to look like siding because it's my opinion that I think siding cheapens the exterior. Even the nicest siding still looks like siding. So that's why we went with the larger panels. And when Chris went ahead and laid out the sheets according to like the manufacturer's dimensions, we had done it specifically so there weren't vertical lines because it gave it more of this stone look. Because generally when you see it like on a lot of the brownstones and things in Old Town and the newer construction, there's one on Davis, I think it's in the 7100 block. That's a newer construction as well that has some of that stone cladding on it. You don't see the vertical lines, you only see that horizontal line. So when he did it, he figured the sheets to be laid so that the windows were the seams and the corners were the seams very strategically. So that was all uniform as not to introduce what looked like a Tudor style or board and batten to that as well. So all you see is the stucco with the vertical lines.
Well, the home you refer to on Davis Drive, most of the stone is vertical on there, so it's not horizontally laid.
Then we might not be
So-
talking about the same one.
Okay, just west of Hanley Road. That's our latest new home. So you avoid the vertical lines. You do have the horizontal lines.
Mhm.
But I'm just saying, I think the scale is wrong. And I know what you may like, but you have to deal with us too.
I understand.
So-
I'm not disputing that.
Okay, so my feeling is that we need to table this and let you come back where we can see on the architectural end the responses to the two staff recommendations. One was the 75% of the facade, but we will be able to talk. And secondly, the front yard paving, which you probably have no problem with, and look at the solid to void design of the what we were talking about, the brick to the hardy board siding.
Steve, do you think we could also see a sample of that brought in though? Just so we could see like the reveals and like how big they are and just kind of the thought of how that actually works. And would it really look like stone or does it just look like, you know what I mean? Just so we can
Sure, I
really see
understand what
that.
you mean. I guess the issue is I'd have to have a contractor mock it up because the reglet is a separate piece that we would get somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? The hardy's just a panel. It's like a sheet.
Sure, but- No, for sure. But like you were talking about, it's gonna have a stucco finish and you have like a metal reveal and all that kind of does play into like what.
I could probably get samples of the items.
I just think that would help us kind of better
Yeah.
understand and then also like
Sure.
the scale of it and things like that. To your benefit, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, can I ask a question? So the rear of the house has got that large bay that Helen kind of mentioned. So typically a bay would be a different material than the other part of the house because it is cantilever. You would never cantilever stone or brick. That would be fake. You would say, oh, that's obviously fake brick or thin sliced brick or whatnot, because you don't cantilever materials like that. So would the board find that? I mean, I know you can't vote on it because you don't have it in front of you, but I just want to kind of throw that out there.
We understand
Yeah.
what the cantilever
Right,
requires and what it cannot support.
right.
And I think we would have to look at that in the totality of the hardy board being used.
Mhm.
And the cantilevered portion, to me, when you're looking at the rear elevation, is probably about 50% of the backside. So what I'm saying is you don't have to get to 75% on each facade. But I think we need to look at each facade and then the whole of it. But I recognize that cantilevered portion really is not going to be masonry of any type.
Yeah.
Other comments?
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's, yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
we're not designing it
Yeah,
here
yeah, it's the
tonight.
trouble. Yeah.
We'll leave that up to you. My recommendation is to give you points as David and Anna have indicated to come back to us based on the two staff recommendations in both the Plan Commission review and the ARB review, plus a few additional items. From the Plan Commission review, and correct me anyone if I'm wrong, the Public Works review of the easement I had in there. Oh, I had that down twice. And we were talking about the sound attenuation in the acoustic around the air conditioning units. And I think that's all I had. Did anyone have anything else from Plan Commission?
I don't, maybe bring a sample,
Right, that's
oh, is that in there? Okay.
ARB. We have two staff recommendations in the ARB, the percentage of the brick veneer and the front yard paving, which should be no problem. And as Kami was recommending, that we see material examples. And as you know, like you are, we're visually and texturally responsive. So any other comments to that? Do we have a motion to that to table both to the next meeting? And what date would that be?
September 18th.
September 18th?
I will make a motion to table the site plan review and architectural review on 515 South Central to September 19th.
18th.
second.
All in favor?
I
Opposed? Okay. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that really brings us to the end of our meeting tonight. Kami, any comments?
Nothing further.
Okay, Ellen,
Nothing further.
Bridget,
Nothing further.
David? Nothing, thank you. Okay, Ryan
Nothing.
and Anna.
No, quick reminder, we do have the art fair this weekend in the city. There will be a booth there that the city is running that's gonna cover a variety of topics, including the comprehensive plan and the livable communities plan. This will be the first activity that the out of town consultants that are running the livable community plans we're gonna actually be in town to be at that booth on Friday night. So and some of you might not have engaged a lot with them or with that plan yet because they're ramping up now. So I would recommend stopping by. I believe the table is going to be at the intersection of North Merrimack and Forsyth, if I remember correctly. That's where it usually is. So right around that area, look for their table. And then Saturday, Ryan and I will be at that table for the comp plan. So.
Did you say the out-of-town consultants will only be there Friday night?
Correct. Yes, agency will be running the booth Friday night for the livable community. Both throughout the entire weekend, there will be materials related to both plans, so people will be able to engage with them. But those consultants will be there on Friday night.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.